Welcome to Financial Revelations. I am David Safransky, your host, as every week. You can catch us at FI Revelations, that's FI Revelations on Twitter, and you could email us if you have a question, a concern, or anything about the broadcast that you'd like us to talk about at david@epsf.com or, and more preferably, Joshua@epsf.com. He's the show producer, and he forwards me all the questions that you guys ask. We did get questions this week about Ukraine, and so I want to open up a little bit about Ukraine, but what I really want to talk about is what's going to happen next week at the Fed meeting. So as of today, today is the 10th, right? The 10th? Ukraine is still happening.
It's the 11th.
It's the 11th. Okay. I'm a day late and a dollar short once again. Somebody did just email me last week and said, "Hey, I watched the last podcast. The sound was horrible and you look very tired." So I said, "Thank you for the kind comments, but I am tired. Of course I'm tired. Look at what's going on around the world." So Ukraine is still happening. It's very tragic. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Early on, I think NATO leaders, the United States included, made the decision that they're willing to sacrifice the Ukraine to appease Vladimir Putin. So we have offered some minor assistance through the use of missiles, handheld missiles, javelins, and Stinger missiles, and those are good. They're going to really help take out tanks, but they're not going to do anything for the aircraft, for the planes that are flying at 30,000 feet. And a lot of the shelling, some of the biggest things that are coming into the country, like cruise missiles, those are coming out of Russia. So we're not going to attack in Russia. And really, the way I see this, and I understand that we have a delicate balance here that we have to walk. The humanitarian crisis that's happening, the things that are happening to the Ukrainian people right now are just tragic. And we are allowing a dictator to dictate to us what is going to happen. And I can tell you with certainty, Donald Trump would not have allowed this to happen. In fact, it didn't happen under Donald Trump, and there's a reason for that. He's kind of a wild card. People didn't know what he was going to do. He didn't have a track record of foreign policy decisions, so it was difficult for them to ascertain what was going to happen next. So they just stood down for a long time. The world is a very unsafe place right now. We gave away a lot of our leverage early on in the Biden administration with energy prices, and the world reacts to those things. And when the world's bad guys are not afraid of the United States, they tend to act out. And I think that's exactly what you're seeing right now. This is not the last thing that's going to happen. And it does bring a little bit of pause to our assessment of what's going to happen in the markets. There's a couple things that will affect it. One is the Fed meeting next week. The Fed is going to meet. They are going to raise rates. The meeting is next Tuesday and Wednesday, and they'll come out with a statement Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock usually. And the expectation is for a 1/4 point rise in interest rates, also known as 25 basis points. In the business, we say 25 bips, and a basis point is 1/100th of a percentage point. So we're going to raise 25 basis points or 25 bips next week. Now, if you're at a party and you're talking about the Fed and you want to sound great, just say, "Oh yeah, I saw the Fed went 25 bips on Wednesday." They'll be impressed, trust me. All the girls like that. They're also going to stop buying government debt, and that completely going to stop buying government debt. And last year, and even part of this year, the Federal Reserve has been buying about 60% of all the government debt that has been issued. So they have about $8.5 trillion on their balance sheet right now. They've never done this before. And when they stop buying government debt, what it does is it has the effect of reducing the amount of currency that's in the marketplace. So that also kind of tightens money supply a little bit. Not. I mean, it is meaningful, but it's not the biggest thing that they could do. The biggest thing that they're going to do is they're going to allow some of the bonds on their balance sheet, some of this $8.5 trillion, they're going to allow that to come due and they're going to get paid back for it. So when you buy a bond, what happens is it's a loan, it's an IOU that you get an interest rate for. And when the bond comes due, you get your last interest payment and your principal back. And that's what's going to happen. So in essence, they're going to be taking money out of the economy. The government's going to have to pay back the Fed. And that is a form of quasi-tightening. And it is a very effective form. And because they're not going to be buying any more government debt, putting money into the market, and they're going to be allowing bonds to kind of fall off their balance sheet, quite a bit of money, quite a bit of liquidity is going to come out of the market. And that is going to have the impact of raising rates slightly. And that's really the idea right now, because we had 8% inflation on Thursday, yesterday. The Fed really does have to start raising rates right now. And that's why I think my near-term expectations would be that while Ukraine will be settled probably in 45 days or less, I think that they're going to come up with some kind of negotiated settlement where they allow Russia to have some things and they stay neutral. And the Fed rate hike will cause a minor to no reaction, followed by acceptance in the market. And I think most people like me are very accepting of a rate hike right now. The inflation is very, very difficult to slow down. And if it gets out of control, it's not there yet, but if it does get out of control, it's very difficult to slow that down. You have to do things basically to force the economy into a recession. And the Fed doesn't want to do that, and we don't need to do that as of right now. The language from the Fed meeting will be tougher than the action that the Fed will take. So they're going to talk a really tough game. They're going to do some things to back up some of the talk, but not nearly as tough as what they would have done had Ukraine not happened. But the Fed likes to talk. It's a big tool in their arsenal. And so they talk some trades off, especially some of the higher levered ones with borrowed money, the crypto trade. And that has the effect of slowing the economy down. I think the inflation numbers for the next couple of months are going to be the highest some of us have ever seen in our adult lives. I personally, in my adult life, have never seen inflation numbers like this before. It is a little bit scary. And I'll tell you, with fuel, which is up about 40% year over year, this is a self-inflicted wound. We did this to ourselves because when the Biden administration came in, they did away with drilling on public lands and in the ocean, and they made it much more difficult to get drilling leases. That brought oil from $40 a barrel to $95 a barrel. Gas was already expensive. And then, as Murphy's Law would have it, something went wrong, and Russia invaded Ukraine, which took oil from 95 to about 125. And I think they're about to start in Ukraine the real bombardment, the real war, because they, from my military experience, would tell me that they thought that the Ukrainians were going to roll over for them. And when that didn't happen, they had to go to Plan B, which was a little bit more barbaric, much more focused on civilian population as opposed to military population. And no matter how many missiles we give them, Russia is going to outgun them. They're going to have more. It's going to be bigger. It's going to be just more vicious, and that's happening. And nobody wants to see this happen. We're not going to get the settlement that we want out of this. I'm thoroughly convinced of that, because we're not willing to do anything to get it. And when you're not willing to do anything to get it, you're not going to get it. And I think that the last thing that I think is going to happen is the administration is going to continue to blame anyone but the true culprits, which is the administration. They're right now in a time where oil prices are skyrocketing, inflation is higher than I have ever seen in my adult life. It would make a lot of sense to drill for oil and provide our own product. When we're a net oil exporter, when we're an energy exporter, which we were for a little while, for a couple of years under Trump, the world is a much safer place. It just is the way it is. There's nothing we're going to do to change that. There's some people that given the opportunity, they're going to attack. They're going to take advantage of people. But if they're afraid that a missile is going to come through their bedroom window, every night they have to worry about that, they make different decisions. And right now, I think we're kind of being economic buffoons, monetary morons, in the fact that we will not allow or encourage drilling. And they're going to say they're doing that. They're going to say, oh, production's at near record highs. It is not. We are not at near record highs. We are below record highs. And look, I love Tesla. I love those cars. I don't own one. I'm probably not going to own one because of the way I drive. And they present a lot of promise. And there may be a time in the near future where you'll get the same energy density out of batteries that you do out of gasoline. But we're not there yet. It's just not there. It takes way longer to get to a full charge than it does to get to a full tank of gas. And your range is limited. And the places where you could charge that car, that vehicle, are also very limited. So in the meantime, as we build out the infrastructure, as we improve battery capacity and energy density for electric vehicles, we still need combustion cars. We're going to have them for the next 40 years. No doubt in my mind. So don't make it hard. We're trying to force a 3% solution to 100% of the population. It is not realistic, and it's not practical, and it's not wise, because it's setting us up to be beholden to people who do not like us. When you look at a Tesla or any electric vehicle, the battery pack in that car, it's going to weigh 1,200 pounds. So there's a lot of batteries that get that car to move. And to build that battery, we have to go to China and Russia. They have the rare earth materials that we need. We don't want them in our back pocket anymore. We're trying to get away from Russia. We're trying to get away from a lot of reliance on China. There's a lot of, I heard the term this morning, nearshoring, where people are taking production means out of China and they're bringing it closer again, or onshoring, they're just bringing it back to America. There is a definitive change in the globalization idea that was proposed in the late 90s, really the mid 90s, when we really started going into China full scale. People are realizing there's a better way to do things, and they're bringing it back to America, and they're bringing it back to Canada, Mexico, or places nearby where they're just more reliable. We cannot rely on China to make our prescription drugs. They're going to hold us hostage on that eventually, and they will. And just like we told Europe, do not rely on Russia for 50% of your energy. They didn't listen, and they're about to get held hostage for that energy production because they don't have it. Now, we could be selling it to them, but our administration won't let us do that. So that's enough on that. Next week, the Fed meeting. It's going to be a big deal because it represents the beginning of a tightening cycle. It's not just let's do one and done. I think they're going to have to tighten for the next couple of years, sometimes a little faster. That will affect markets. But this is the beginning of a cycle, so things are going to change. I think the market is accepting of it, and I think markets will rally into the end of the year, especially when the Republicans take back the House and the Senate in the midterms, which I know the Republicans are really good at snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory, but I think even they will get this right this time. And that's going to have a powerful effect on what markets think, because divided government's really good for the stock market, especially when you're dividing what we got now. This is not good for the stock market. Being energy dependent is not good for the stock market. I'm David Safransky. This is Financial Revelations, and we will talk to you next week after the first Fed rate hike in the course of many. Thank you.